Dear Prime Minister Albanese, I was born into an extremist family under an extremist government, the Islamic Republic of Iran. Today, I sit here as a deeply grateful Christian Australian citizen. I know from lived experience what happens when governments refuse to confront dangerous ideologies early, and what it costs ordinary people when they do not. I'm speaking to you on behalf of Australian citizens who expect their government to protect its people and to speak plainly about what threatens this nation. On Sunday, 14th of December 2025, at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Sajid Akram and his son Navid Akram opened fire at Chinooka by the Sea, a public Jewish community event. This was a targeted anti-Semitic terrorist attack. Australians were murdered. Dozens more were injured. These facts demand honesty, not euphemism. This was not random violence. It was not confusion. It was not a mental health episode. Mental illness does not explain ideological targeting, religious hatred, or deliberate mass murder. This was ideology. An ideology that teaches that people who think differently are legitimate targets for physical violence and murder. An ideology that has been tolerated for too long because confronting it has been politically uncomfortable. In the middle of that attack, an Australian civilian intervened and disarmed one of the gunmen, Ahmed Al-Ahmed, a 43-year-old shop owner and father of two. He acted unarmed and at personal risk. He saved lives. He is a hero in the truest sense of the word. His actions reflected courage, responsibility, and moral clarity, values good Australians still recognize and respect. When leadership hesitates, it is ordinary Australians like this man who show us who we are supposed to be. Prime Minister, our legal system is founded on English common law, shaped over centuries by principles such as the sanctity of life, individual responsibility, and the inherent dignity of the human person. Principles historically informed by Judeo-Christian ethics. Every Australian citizen, every resident, and every guest in this country is required to live under that legal framework. There are no cultural or religious exemptions for physical violence, intimidation, or murder. Prime Minister, multiculturalism demands nothing and excuses everything. It divides a nation with competing moral systems and leaves the state paralyzed when these systems collide. But integration, one law, one civic standard, and one set of non-negotiable rules that apply to everyone equally. If you live in Australia, you live under Australian law and Australian standards of conduct. There are no cultural exemptions for physical violence. An ideology, whether it be religious, political, or cultural, that teaches that people who disagree should be harmed or killed is incompatible with Australia. This is not about private belief, it is about public safety and loyalty to the social contract. Non-citizens who support or act on violent extremist ideologies should not remain in this country. Citizens who act on it must face permanent consequences under the law. That is not discrimination. It is the minimum responsibility of a sovereign nation. There's another failure that I must acknowledge. For too long, Australian governments have turned a blind eye to the oppression and abuse of women and girls inside their own homes because confronting it was considered culturally sensitive. Too many Muslim women, Muslim daughters in particular, have been failed by a system that too often labeled violence as family disputes and coercive control as cultural differences. Honor killings, the belief that a family's religious reputation outweighs a woman's life is evil wherever it happens. And when the state refuses to act decisively, it does not remain neutral. It sides with the abuser. Australia must be a safe place for Muslim women too, from violence hidden behind closed doors. If someone lives in Australia and believes women are subordinate, that apostasy deserves physical punishment, or offense justifies physical violence, then that person is not integrated. Integration should not be optional. It is the price of living in a free society. Bondi did not come out of nowhere. It followed years of harassment, intimidation, protests that crossed into threats, and the consistent minimization of anti-Semitic violence. When governments refuse to draw lines early, those lines are eventually drawn in blood. That is what happened at Bondi. That, Prime Minister, is on you. Australians need to be able to count on you, not to manage language, not to soften reality, but to defend the nation you lead. A country that is afraid to define what it stands for cannot remain free. Integration, protection of the innocent, and zero tolerance of ideological physical violence are not extreme positions. They are the foundations of a functioning nation. The victims of Bondi deserved better. Jewish Australians deserve better. Muslims who uphold Judeo-Christian values deserve better. All Australians deserve better. Leadership is not about avoiding criticism. It is about making decisions that keep your people safe. The time for avoidance is over. Prime Minister Albanese, the floor is yours.